really long time.
Yep.
Sorry, ABNF fans and listeners of our podcast. We are back with another great episode for you today. Nick, I know that March Madness is going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we're close to the playoffs.
Yep.
And it kind of looks like we already know who's going to be in the playoffs no matter what.
Yep.
I don't really think there's going to be any races to the last couple seeds, really outside of
the Warriors Rockets, pretty much, or those,
like the play-in for the West is still up for grabs, but we know the East basically. I don't think there's going to be any changes there
unless the Bulls move down to the 10th. That'll be the only difference. Just the seedings might change, but we know the teams. Right?
So we know the 10 teams for both conferences basically. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. Nick, what are we talking about today?
Well, the first topic we're going to discuss is the Houston Rockets. They've won 9 in a row. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games, and they're finally healthy. They had some injuries in the beginning of the year. Now, pretty much seeing how this team, what they could really look like at full strength. So, we're going to bring up the Houston Rockets. We're going to talk about the Boston Celtics blowing a 30-point lead to the Atlanta Hawks last night without Trae Young, obviously. And obviously, Boston was missing Drew Holiday, Derek White, but Alex, I'm going to open the question up to you when we get to that topic, if it's a big deal or not, because 8 out of their 15 losses, they've blown 10-plus point leads. So is that an issue? And then the last topic, we're going to talk about March Madness and stuff like that. So it's a great time for basketball. Just like you said, we're getting closer to the playoffs. And obviously, March Madness, we're in the Sweet 16 of that tournament already. So just very excited to get to these topics today, dive deep into them.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to talk a lot about basketball. It's been a really long time since we've been able to get on. So guys, if you have not checked out our last episode, that will be down below in the link. Check it out. Otherwise, Nick, I'm going to get straight into it today.
Yep.
Houston Rockets, right?
Yes.
So I remember last summer we were talking with one of our buddies, Ali. He came on the show. And he talked very highly about the Rockets. He said they were going to be a 4 seed. We both said they were going to basically be a borderline play-in team.
Yes.
And it looked like about a month ago when Alperen Sengun got hurt, it looked like they were basically
dead in the water.
Yeah, they were done for. Season was going to be over. Just kind of move on to next year. But out of nowhere, Nick, like you said, they've been 9-1 in their last 10.
9 in a row.
They've won 9 in a row. It's been really off the back of Jalen Green. He has been hooping.
Yes, he is.
I mean, he's averaging damn near 40 right now.
He's been on a heater.
And I just want to ask you, Nick, if the Rockets can make a run here, right, and they overtake the Warriors for that 10 spot, do you think there is a chance they can make the playoffs?
Never say never. Anything can happen. I think they're getting hot at the right time.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of these guys, just like in the beginning of the year, they were dealing with some injuries. And I think it's funny now, what took them so long to start putting Cam Whitmore in the every game rotation? What took them so long to do that? You saw the kid had talent right away, and you weren't playing him in the beginning of the year. He was out of the rotation. I mean, look what he's done in 38 out of 70. He's played in 38 games out of 71. That's because he wasn't really playing. But he's averaged over 12 points per game, 4 rebounds. 6 players on this team average double figures, actually 12 or more points per game. They got a lot of scoring options on this team. Look at all the young talent they have. They're 3rd in the NBA in rebounds per game. Just like we said, we're 9-1 in the last 10 games. They're 24-19 in the conference record-wise, and they're 26-11 at home. And they're only a game and a half back from the 10 seed, struggling Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, man. Look, I know that you know I'm not a Warriors guy, and I'm not here to hate on them because this is not what this podcast is about. I do respect Steph Curry. I do respect
their dynasty.
Yeah, the dynasty. As much as I want to say oh, I hate them, at the end of the day, they won 3 championships in the Steph Curry era. Now, or I'm sorry,
4.
actually 4 now.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I was just thinking
we don't count the Kevin Durant ones.
Yeah, so the 2, so really 2 without Kevin Durant, because that's one thing that I will always put an asterisk on is, look, they won 2 with KD. I don't think they're winning in 2017 without him. So that's just
some people might disagree, but I agree with you there.
Yeah. But to get into this, I actually do think that Golden State, who actually is currently winning right now, 85-75 to Miami, I do think that they are going to find themselves out of the play-in. I just see they're struggling right now to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
The Rockets, if they continue this, maybe I should put that as a little bit of an asterisk here. If the Rockets continue at the pace they're at, I do think they're going to pass the Warriors. I do not think the Warriors have enough because they lack a couple things. They lack size, they lack depth, and they're basically hoping that Steph Curry can carry them at 36 years old. So
the Rockets have a lot of depth. Just like I said,
Yeah.
6 players averaging double figures. Prince Sengun, 21 per game. Jalen Green has been on a heater. He's averaging just under 20. Fred VanVleet, now I think he's starting to understand how to play with this team because I feel like when he was in Toronto, he was more of like a scoring option. Now he's becoming more of the floor general kind of point guard, right? Getting Jalen Green the ball a lot more now. You know, he is still averaging just under 17 points per game, under 4 rebounds per game. He is averaging over 8 assists per game. Now, obviously, Jabari Smith averaging about 13 a game, 9 rebounds. You know, Dylan Brooks, no matter what we say about the guy, I mean, he is averaging 13 points per game, and he's giving you about 3 rebounds and 2 assists a game, and he's shooting at a pretty good 3-point percentage this year too.
100%.
So they got a lot of guys on this team. I haven't even mentioned like all the other young talent that they have. Like Eason, he was out the majority of the year. He's in the rotation now. He's only put in 22 games this year. And Thompson, you know, he's only going to continue to grow as a player. They have Tate, they have Jock Londell, they have Aaron Holiday, Jeff Green. When you look at it, they actually have a lot of talent on this team. It just took them a while to learn how to play together because I feel like a lot of these guys, or Ime Udoka didn't know which rotations worked the best. Obviously, because he wasn't playing Cam Whitmore. Look at what he's been doing since he's been on the floor. Cam Whitmore. I mean, he would have been probably a better rookie of the year candidate over Highcast because everyone's been talking about Chet Holmgren or Wemby. Cam Whitmore probably would have been the 3rd best rookie if he was playing the full year. I mean, that's what I think.
I think if he's getting the type of minutes that Jaime Jaquez is getting, I think they would definitely be up there.
Yeah.
I do want to actually mention, I do not believe Cam Whitmore has played in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know that is because I have him on fantasy. But he is a really good basketball player.
Yeah. Yeah, I was meaning more like the start of the year, even when he wasn't hurt.
Oh yeah.
They weren't playing him.
I do remember that because I would say about the first month and a half of the year, he wasn't playing at all. Then out of nowhere, I think he dropped like 20 something points in like a game, and then all of a sudden, Ime Udoka's like giving him minutes.
Yeah.
I think another crazy thing too, Nick, is that the amount of young guys that they have on this team, and then the veteran blend that they have.
Yeah.
A lot of people do not know this because Steven Adams isn't even playing right now because he's been hurt and he got traded out of nowhere. But this team has a lot of size. Jock Londell was another pickup that they had in the offseason, a good rotational center. Something I did want to mention real quick too is ever since Alperen Sengun went down, they've been playing Jabari Smith a lot of the 5, but it's worked in a lot of the cases. Obviously, we've seen them in this stretch, and I think that Jabari Smith is one of those guys that isn't talked about as much, but he does what he needs to do in order to help his team win.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the flashiest player in the world, but I think he's a good guy. Like, I think he's like an 18 and 10 guy that's going to be have a solid NBA career. I don't think he'll ever be a star, but I do think that he definitely has a lot of upside to him.
Yeah.
You know what's one other thing that I was listening to this week, which is crazy, is that Alperen Sengun was on the OKC Thunder at one point.
Yes.
And I did not actually know that.
Imagine him on the Thunder right now with that team. They might actually be competing for. They might would actually won an NBA championship, been in the finals.
Oh man, dude!
Can you imagine that team with Sengun, with Oklahoma, with Chet Holmgren, with SGA, with Williams? Oh man! Oof.
Hey, your boy SGA out here, they're gonna be at least the 2 seed. If they say the 2 seed, man, I think that's gonna be good for them. I will say real quick before we get to the next topic too. I know we talked about this a little bit, but the play-in in the West, man. We were, before we started recording, you said it. Luka, KD, LeBron, Steph. You know Adam Silver, after that terrible All-Star Weekend ratings, he is going to want something like that to boost the NBA playoff ratings.
Because I think the Eastern Conference play-ins can be a little boring, so the West is going to make it very, very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even bold, man. We already know the 7 and 8 seed are going to... Yeah. We know that they're going to be the 2 teams that make the...
and I think in the West, even if it's actually the Rockets actually make it over the Warriors, which that could very well might happen, I think the Rockets will still put up a fight. I think they have enough, talent to at least compete. I think as of right now, they would play. It'd be Dallas, right? Because I think the Suns are the 8th seed. They've been dropping the Suns. That's a team that's been dropping. The Clippers have been lacking lately. Like Tyronn Lue's been questioning, the team's, capabilities of performing. They haven't really been performing. He's calling them soft. He's calling the team soft right now. That's what he said in the press conference not too long ago. So it's very interesting how the West almost completely flip-flopped the last time we recorded. Obviously, Minnesota too was struggling. That's another team struggling due to injuries and stuff with Cat and stuff. So now they're starting to slide down in the rankings. Now they're third. They have a 5-game lead over the teams that are 4th and 5th. I think the Clippers and somebody else, I can't think. Oh, Pelicans. I think they're both tied right now for the 4th and 5th spot, and they're 5 games behind Minnesota. And luckily, Minnesota, there's not that many games left, so they just have to play 500-ish ball to secure a 3rd spot.
So you're actually right, yeah. So they are 5 games above New Orleans. Pelicans are tied with the Clippers right now. The Kings who kind of have been on the fringe. Just a week ago, the Kings were actually playing. Yeah. So right now is like they're right outside of the play-in. They play Minnesota in the first round if the season ended today. I'm really impressed by the Pelicans. I think that's a team that we haven't talked about too much this year. This was a team we talked about a lot last year on the podcast when they were healthy. I think before Zion went down.
Yeah, they were number 1 or number 2 in the West before Zion went down.
And guess who's healthy this year, or at least healthy-ish? Zion. Yeah. So I do think that it'll be good to see them in the playoffs this year. We haven't seen Zion in the playoffs yet, so this will be the first time in his career. So I just want to say real quick to my boy Mark, if you're watching, Zion actually stayed pretty healthy this year. You really doubted him, so I'm just going to say that real quick.
Who drafted him in fantasy and took the gamble?
This guy. And he was also number 1 in our fantasy.
So far, playoffs just started out. I could lose in the first round. I'm dealing with some injuries on my team.
Hey man, but it's best of luck. So I hope you pull it out.
We might face each other in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true. So then I can't say good luck to you anymore. So Nick, I know that the next topic that you wanted to talk about was going to be question.
Yes.
The Boston Celtics.
Yes.
So what was that question?
So obviously the Celtics, we all know, blew a 30-point lead last night to the Atlanta Hawks. With obviously Boston didn't have Drew Holiday and Derek White. They didn't play last night. Obviously Trae Young's been out. Looks like he's probably going to be out for a lot longer. 8 out of their 15 losses here. I'm going to run this to you real quick. So they're 57-15. Obviously, they pretty much secured the number 1 seed. I don't think there's any debate. But look at these blown leads that they had, which led to losses, right? They had an 11-point lead to Philly at one game. They blew it. They had an 18-point lead to the Hornets. They blew it. 12-point lead to the Magic. They blew that game. 17-point lead to the Warriors. They blew that game. 12-point lead to the Nuggets. They blew that lead. 22-point lead to the Cavaliers. They blew that lead. And 30 points last night to the Hawks team without Trae Young. Is this concerning to you going into the playoffs that they've had all these lapses?
I feel like, so my only thing with them is like some of the teams they've lost to, I understand that you don't take those teams serious, but you should take every team seriously no matter what, because at the end of the day, everybody in the NBA
can play.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter what team you're on. I do think that the Celtics take their foot off the gas too early, and that has been a huge issue for them, especially when we see it in the playoffs. They're a team that has really underperformed the last couple of years with this core, and I just kind of feel like time is running out for them. And because this year, if they don't make it out of the East, I do think that they are in like some serious trouble. Just because you cannot be underperforming when you bring in guys like Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and you have Jason Tatum.
They traded for Tillman too.
Xavier Tillman.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you keep finding these guys. Sam Hauser. He was cooking the Bulls on Saturday. I was at the game. That guy.
He's a nice role player.
He undrafted.
He's gonna get paid. He's a free agent.
And that's the thing, is the Celtics are deep, man.
Mm-hmm.
They were missing KP, Drew, and I don't know why I'm blanking. Oh, Jalen. Jalen was also missing from that game, and they took care of business. Yeah. But there are times where the Celtics do just kind of feel like, how did you lose that game? I mean, they lost the game to the Lakers without AD and LeBron.
Yep, they did. That's
so
true.
I do think that it can be a little concerning, but I just feel like we just have not trusted Boston enough.
Yeah.
With the playoffs, obviously last year they were down 3-0 to the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. They have struggled to close out games. I mean, I think the finals is a perfect example.
Yeah, they were up 2-1. They should have won that game to go up 3-1. You know, it just didn't happen. And they've been doing this for the last few years now. They get real sloppy and careless in fourth quarter games. The blown leads, I think it is an issue because going into the playoffs, because I just think it's because they're letting these teams back in the game so much. It's because they fall in love with the 3-point shot way too much. Yeah. They shoot the most threes in the NBA, and when you get on a cold streak, 20-point lead in the NBA now is nothing now. Because a lot of teams jack up a bunch of threes. So if one team starts to knock down some threes and you're not knocking down any threes, that team will be able to come back in the snap of a finger. You know what I mean? There's an interesting stat that I want to lay out to you. This is from last night's game.
Okay.
So Boston missed 16 straight threes in the last 10 seconds of the shot clock in the last 3 quarters of the game. That's telling you pretty much
you're living and dying by
the three, and the execution's not there. You're not getting the good quality looks. There's no ball movement. And I'm telling you right now, they have the talent itself is going to put them in the finals if they're healthy, if their top 4 are healthy. But they're playing against the Nuggets in the finals. I'm telling you right now, the Denver Nuggets are going to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series because of the way Boston. And did you watch that clip? The Hawks have a 1-point lead. Right, with 54 seconds left. Did you watch the play that's been going on social media? Jaylen Brown has the ball for the entire shot clock. Nobody's moving. And all of a sudden, Kristaps Porzingis tries to send Jaylen Brown a ball screen with 4 seconds left on the shot clock. He takes 2 dribbles for a pull-up, heavy contested 3, and they clank it. Joe Mazzulla, too, he's a huge question mark to me because I honestly believe he's not that good of a coach. When you have 2 timeouts left in that situation, and you know nobody's moving on offense, you're not getting anything going. Less than a minute to go, you need to have this possession.
100%.
Why not use one of those timeouts? At least draw something up. I think they fall in love with this isolation basketball too much, is what we talked about. They still really don't have that true point guard. They don't have a guy that knows how to orchestrate the offense, knows how to run a set play for somebody. They just try to give the ball to Tatum and Brown and just say, hey, take us home. That doesn't work all the time. It might work in a regular season. Obviously, you're 57-50. You can win as many games as you want in a regular season. But the playoffs are there. It's a different breed, and I don't trust their way to execute in late game situations.
Yeah,
for me to pick them to win the finals.
Something that you mentioned that I definitely took away the most was Joe Mazzulla not using his timeouts. I actually think that that's not just a Joe Mazzulla issue. I feel like that's a huge coach issue in the NBA. I don't know what it is, but at the end of the game, when you have multiple timeouts and the clock is against you, use the damn timeout to come up with a play that makes sense. Don't just go down the court and jack up a 3 because that's what stats tell you. If you want to come back in this game, the probability of you winning goes up if you take a quick 3. Yeah. And I think that a lot of players just kind of think that, oh, if I take this quick shot, it's going to go in.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you've listened to the JJ Redick and LeBron podcast, but
I have not, but I've seen clips of it.
So I actually think it is a really good podcast if you want to talk about basketball, because it's not talking about like, oh, how do I feel about the game? It's more of like, oh, they actually like dissect the game in there.
Yeah.
But LeBron actually mentioned something in there where it was like the 2-for-1 situation where a lot of teams will just jack up shots, right? It's even at the end of games, I feel like there's too many teams just go down, try to take a really contested 3.
Yeah.
And you'll listen to like the in-person broadcasters talk about like, you don't need the 3 yet. You could take a quick 2. You know? you never know. People are not perfect from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Now, if this was college, I would for sure take the 2 because guys in the college cannot shoot the free throw at all.
I hear you. You just saw what happened at A&M Houston game. The guy jacked up the 3 and airballed it when the guy missed the first free throw. It would have been a 1 possession game. So now I totally get you. There's one last stat I want to throw at you.
Okay.
I was doing some digging more on the Celtics, right? So in the first quarter of games, the Celtics are top 10 in the league in pace. They play very, very fast. But in fourth quarters of games this year, they're second in the bottom in pace. They slow down way too much. That's why they've blown so many leads, because I think they get too comfortable when they have a lead 15-plus points, because they feel like, as long as we use the shot clock, let's drain the clock down. But they're not getting any good possessions. And teams, if they start knocking down some shots, they're able to get back in the game so quickly. So I think, just like you said, I think it is a coaching issue. Yeah. I don't think it's they have all the talent in the world. They honestly, they have the best starting lineup in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's not even a debate.
Yeah, no, they do.
They have great bench players coming off the bench, you know what I mean? And just like you said, if they don't win the championship this year, or matter of fact, if they don't come out of the East, Missoula's got to get fired. He has to get fired.
They don't want to. I'm going to say this right now, Nick. They don't want to play Miami in the playoffs.
No.
Again, they are not good against Miami. For some reason,
they're not.
Eric Spoelstra has the Celtics number.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Butler loves playing against them. So I would really, if I was Boston, I want to stay as far away from Miami as possible, because this team this year, they haven't looked good, but I think that this is one of their better rosters they have right now, based on the talent they actually have.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say I agree with the whole thing with Boston. You know, they're in trouble if they don't even make it out of the East. Yeah. Right now, they are poised to make it out of the East. Because I just don't believe in Milwaukee.
The Knicks have too much injury issues. Ananobi's been out for a while. Randall was out too. Is he still out?
Yeah, I think Randall is going to be out. I don't think he's playing.
Mm-hmm. And obviously Philly, no Embiid. Like, who's gonna really, besides the Bucks, who's really Miami? Miami does match. They match up Boston very well. Yeah. But besides those 2 teams, who's gonna match up with Boston in a 7-game series? That can give them at least push them to 6 games. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think Orlando can. And I think Orlando's been a really good team that people have not talked about this year. I know we talked about them a bit on the pod, but I don't think anybody else that's in the East can challenge them, because I think everybody lacks not the size, but just kind of like the mismatches are just too heavy. Yeah. Like the Pacers, for example, I don't think they match up well against them, and they're also going to be missing Benedict Mathurin for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's a huge loss.
And Tyrese Halliburton has been shaky as of late. So
watch him cook the Bulls tomorrow over there. He's going for 40 tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you know
heard it first. He's going for 40.
All right, 40 tomorrow. All right. Well, I'll remember that. Because shout out Hallie. I definitely hope that he has a good game tomorrow against the Bulls. I know that I don't want to see the Bulls lose, but let's just
obviously it's just like with Boston, it's just the way they try to execute late in these games. It's just, you scratch the back of your head while watching them.
One other thing too is their style of play, living and dying by the 3, is the same reason why Houston never won anything.
Yep.
So we could keep talking about this till the end of time, but I think that the 3 things that Boston really is going to struggle with in the playoffs, I think, is the game becomes slower. You're not going to have as much time to just shoot wide open 3s. There's going to be way more contests.
Yeah.
So the defense gets tighter.
Yeah.
And do you trust your coach to make the right decision at the end of a game?
Yeah. They also know how to put teams away. If you're struggling doing that in the regular season right now, imagine come playoff time, you're playing teams that are over 500. Look at the games that I mentioned, that the teams that they've lost to, like the Hornets, the Magic, the Warriors are not very good. Atlanta's not very good.
I think Atlanta losing from 30. Yeah.
I mean, I understand. They didn't have Derek White or Drew Holiday last night. I get it. But at the same time, if you're up by 30, you should be able to put in the 15th guy on your bench for the rest of the game. You should be able to hold a 30-point lead in the NBA.
But like you said, though, it is hard to keep a lead in the NBA now, just based on the...
People jack up 3s.
Yeah, because the amount of 3s that people are taking and the way the pace... I guess the offensive pace and I know we've said this before,
Mm-hmm.
the Phoenix Suns of 2004 were considered one of the fastest paced offensive teams of their time.
Yeah.
Right? In 2024, they would be dead last.
Dead last.
So, like, even the worst team in the NBA has a faster pace than what we call the 10 seconds or less offense.
Mm-hmm.
When you see stuff like that, this is why we see so many blown leads.
That's true.
And, I mean, like, right now, I mean, this is kind of crazy, but, like, the Lakers are playing the Bucks right now, and I've just been kind of looking, like, back and forth a little bit. They're only down by 5. They were down by, like, 15.
Okay.
So, like, it's just kind of, like,
yeah.
When you see, like, you even see that, I'm going to just give you one more example. OKC and New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
OKC was just up by 20. They're only up by 8 now against New Orleans. So, this is what I'm talking about, man. It's just, there's too much talent in the NBA, and there's too many guys that can shoot. Yeah. So, Nick, what is our next topic that we want to talk about right now?
It's obviously March Madness. You know, it's that time of year. Obviously, we've gone through the round of 68 or like
64,
the 64, then the round of 32. But there was the first 4, then the round of 64, and then the round of 32 and stuff. This March Madness has been very interesting because there were upsets in the first round, but in the round of 32, all the favorites won except Clemson beat Baylor. That was the only, I guess, upset. But at the same time, it's a 6-3. It's not like there wasn't that Cinderella team this year. I mean, NC State's still in an 11 seed. I guess you could call them a Cinderella team because they were very bad this year, and they had to play 5 games in 5 days to win the ACC tournament just to get in. And they got in. Not only that, now they're in the Sweet 16. So I guess they're the Cinderella team this year, but there wasn't like that St. Peter's. There wasn't that, like, if Oakland would have won,
if Oakland had beat
the Cinderella team, you know, like NC State, like they just been a heater. Yeah. And they're actually been playing like good competition. ACCs are pretty good. You know, I mean, there's 4 out of the 16 teams are ACC teams still in it in this thing right now. Yeah. But how's your bracket looking?
Hey man, my bracket isn't busted yet. All right, now it's not perfect, but I can say it's not busted because my Final Four teams are still in there.
Who you got?
So I will tell you right now as I pull up my bracket. Yep. I know that I have a couple, Nick, but I am going to use this one where I have UConn winning. Okay. So my Final Four in this UConn bracket right here is UConn, Arizona, Houston, and Purdue. Okay. Now I will say this first before I hear yours. Did you know that this is only the 5th time in the history of the NCAA March Madness tournament that all number 1 and number 2 seeds made it to the Sweet 16?
Yeah, I heard that stat from you before we started recording. But before that, no, I did not know. That's just how the tournament's really been. It's just been really chalky for the most part. Normally, you got to pick upsets because, you know, I mean, look at even in the year that Kansas beat Memphis in the national championship game. That was the last time all number 1 seeds made the Final Four. And the last overall number 1 seed going into the tournament that won a national championship was Kentucky back in 2012. AD, Michael Kidd Gilchrist, those guys. So like UConn, and they might win back to back. So, but I have 2 Final Fours. I was in 3 brackets. 2 of my Final Fours are still alive, but they're 2 different Final Fours. Okay, I respect that. So my first Final Four, the one that I'm most confident in, I have UConn, I have Arizona, I have Duke, and I have Purdue. Okay. I think Duke is going to beat Houston. The way that Duke's playing right now, I think Houston showed some vulnerability. They should have lost that game. You blew a 9-point lead. That game should have never went overtime. That 9-point lead.
You know what was crazy about that game, too, was they literally threw the ball away. Yeah. With 55 seconds left.
They had a walk-on, had to shoot to make 1 free throw to make it a 2-possession game, and it was a walk-on.
They also had a lot of foul trouble that game too. I mean, they had 3 of their starters foul out. And 2 of them was even before we went to OT. So.
And Houston doesn't have a lot of depth, anyways. They only play like 7 guys. You know, but just like you said, when you have 3-4 guys that foul out, after the 7th guy, it's a bunch of non-scholarship players. They're gonna be in these situations, you know. And then here's my other Final Four. Okay. Because I can't pick the same Final Four in all brackets because the teams start getting chipped out. Because, you know, upsets do happen every year for some reason, except for this year, really.
This year, I would
say... Besides the Kentucky one, there hasn't been a game that's like, wow, like, I can't believe that happened. Like, the Oakland one, I was shocked right? Just
yeah. Oakland was a big one.
But besides that one, like,
would you say Yale upsetting Auburn, or do we always feel like an Ivy League school is always going to do it regardless?
I don't know if they would do it every year. We've seen an Ivy League school done it before.
Yeah.
You know. But the Kentucky one was shocking because everybody was all on the Kentucky train going into this tournament, going into the Final Four. Not really Auburn so much.
Yeah.
Kentucky was that team. Everyone was like, "Oh, this is a dangerous Kentucky team." But we hear that from Kentucky every year, and I'm sorry, Wildcats fans, they disappoint you again. But here's my other Final Four. I have who do I have? So I still have UConn. Mm-hmm. I have North Carolina. I have Houston and Creighton. That's my other Final Four.
Ooh, Creighton.
I like Creighton. I really do. The Big East was very disrespected this year. You know what's funny? Only 3 teams in the Big East made the tournament. They're all still in it. I think, right? Yeah, UConn, Marquette, and Creighton. Yeah.
Because UConn is not in the ACC.
Yeah.
So
those are the only 3 teams that made it. And what happened was because going into the conference tournaments, a lot of automatic bids didn't happen because a lot of these 7th, 8th seeds ended up winning the tournament. They had to get in to win. 6 or 8 conference champions weren't like 1 or 2 or 3 seeds. They already had like pretty much automatic bids. So that's why a lot of schools like Seton Hall got robbed this year. They were like a 20-plus win team. They beat UConn this year. They didn't get in because like UAB, they were the 12th seed. They played San Diego State. Mm-hmm. They were a 9th seed in their conference tournament. They had a win in the freaking tournament. You don't see that, especially in conference tournament play. So that's why. Yeah, I'm just very shocked overall that March Madness has really been chalky.
You know, I just kind of feel like this year, if you picked all the 1 and 2 seeds, your brackets actually did pretty well. And I feel like a lot of people always pick the higher seeds
and they always are bad. But now this year, if you follow that method, I guess you really have an excellent bracket this year.
Yeah. I can't really think of a lot of people that have told me like their bracket's busted. I did have a buddy that picked Kentucky, so I'm sorry to him.
Yeah.
And it's but that's the beauty of March Madness. Mm-hmm. It's unpredictable. We never know who's gonna truly win because usually it's always a different champion every year. But I feel like UConn this year could actually repeat.
Do you think any team would actually give them a run for their money? Like, do you see San Diego State giving them a run? I don't see
it, but I do think that if they meet up U of I at the Elite Eight, I think that's going to be a better game than people are going to like give it.
Yeah.
Given that they handled Northwestern for sure. Northwestern looked better in the second half, but I don't think they were ever going to beat UConn.
No.
I don't think there's a lot of teams that can challenge them. I think Auburn was going to be one of those teams that a lot of people thought could challenge them.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like they're maybe AZ can, but we'll see.
What really will help is the Final Four is in Arizona, so if Arizona gets in, they're going to have a huge home crowd advantage, and that's the thing with UConn right now. The Sweet 16, Elite 8, the games, I think they're playing in Boston, so they have a huge home advantage in playing in the East Coast. And a lot of the 1 seeds this year, they've been blessed to have home court advantage. North Carolina in the round of 64 and 32 played in Charlotte. Purdue, round of 64, round of 32 played in Indiana. Now UConn has this huge home crowd advantage now. And in Houston, Duke's got to play Houston, but that's in Dallas. That's a home game for Houston because they're playing in the home state of Texas. So these 1 seeds have had favorable locations. I think that's why maybe you haven't seen a 1 seed go down yet.
Could be. It could be. Or we're all just like having this like one like insane year, and then next year all the upsets are just gonna happen again. Yeah. I would also say too, this year, Nick, there really isn't a guy that's in college that was in the tournament that we're really talking about that's gonna be a star in the NBA. I haven't really heard that. Like nobody has been talked about like that. Like previous years, we've always heard guys that are going to go in, like Chet Holmgren 2 years ago with Gonzaga, it's the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
You know, he was going to be a top prospect. Obviously, there's been guys like Ja Morant, Murray State, Zion. Obviously, when he was at Duke with Cam Reddish,
Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, Edwards at Georgia. Obviously, and his situation was kind of weird because that was during COVID too. So like, there's some there's been some players that we've seen that have really developed and get a college career really because of COVID. So we haven't seen it. I think this has been like the second year where I feel like it's been more normal.
Yeah.
And I just don't really see a lot of guys being talked about.
That's true. I think a lot of it's actually players that are pro overseas, or there's a lot of them playing in that NBA G League. I agree though. You haven't heard any hype from any college players. I mean, there's some really good college players, but no one's been hyping them up. Just like the names that you just mentioned, nobody's been hyping them. They're not being put in that stratosphere or in that category of this is the next one.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything like that, and I do think that another thing that could ruin, I think, college sports in general, and I'm all for players getting paid. I don't think there's anything wrong with college athletes getting money, because at the end of the day, you are using their likeness, you are using their name, and they don't see it. I get the scholarships, but dude, come on, $30,000 scholarship versus millions of dollars that you are taking
money off. That.
you're taking that money basically from them.
Yeah,
they should be getting paid.
Especially this tournament alone, you know how much money they probably make. It's ridiculous.
Oh, dude, it's insane. But that's the problem is that schools are gonna start stacking. I do feel like that does end up kind of making a competitive disadvantage to other schools, because it's when we see the difference between college football and college basketball is, in college basketball, it's not necessarily you being the biggest school in the power conference that ends up being a great basketball team.
Yeah.
It's actually sometimes the smaller schools that have these Cinderella runs, right?
Yep.
And they actually do have good basketball programs. Damian Lillard went to Weber State. That is not a huge school.
Yeah. Morant, Murray State.
Yeah, Morant, Murray State.
CJ McCollum, Lehigh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that end up making the NBA that didn't go to these prestigious schools. Marquette, I get, is a Big East school. They're in a big conference, but guys like Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler went to Marquette, and I don't necessarily think Marquette is the glamorous school that we talk about with a Duke or UNC.
Not the Blue Bloods, no.
Yeah.
Kentucky, North Carolina.
You never see stuff like that with some of these schools. So I think it's kind of interesting how college basketball really broadens a lot of people's scope of these schools that you will never hear of, because every other major college sport, they don't exist then, basically.
Yeah. So you do have UConn winning it.
Yeah.
So who would you have? Who do you believe on the opposite side of the bracket? Besides your bracket, right? Do you believe in your bracket or not?
Yeah.
By watching these teams, who do you trust most? If you had to redo a bracket right now, just for the Sweet 16, who do you have going to the national championship game, and who do you have winning it?
Based on the 16 teams that are left, I really trust UConn a lot to be there.
Yep.
I would say that Duke's looking really scary right now. I know that you have them in your Final Four.
Hey. That's my team.
My fear is that. So I don't think Houston is going to. I don't think Houston is going to make it all the way to the championship. I do think they could make it to the Final Four and have them in there. I do think it's possible for them.
Yeah.
But I do see Duke. Don't be surprised if UNC somehow makes it all the way. I do think that they're definitely a program.
Yeah, they have to play UConn in the Final Four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think I would probably say UConn.
Yeah.
And if I had to see a different team, I'll go with Duke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
I think the left side of the bracket, I think the quality of teams are a lot better than the right. Because on the left you have UConn. I think Illinois or Iowa State. Those are very good teams. And you have a potential UNC Arizona matchup. And if one of those schools make it to the Final Four, that left side I think is
a lot better than
the right side.
Okay.
So I would say, it's very hard to win back to back. I think UConn is the best overall team. But again, we haven't seen a back-to-back winner since Florida with Joe Quinoa, Corey Brewer, those Florida team. Billy Donovan was the coach. So I would say my most confident Final Four right now is I would have UConn, Arizona. I think the winner of the Duke Arizona game is gonna beat Marquette or NC State.
Okay.
I think Duke is going to have the edge in that game against Houston. And I think they'll get to the Final Four. And I think they'll lose to Purdue because they don't have the size to match up with Edey. So I'm going to have UConn and Purdue, and UConn taking on Purdue. I think they want Purdue to make a deep run because they lost to a number 1 seed in the last time lost to a 16 seed. Last time a 1 seed lost to a 16 seed was Virginia. The following year they won the national title. So I think they want Purdue to at least make the Final Four, and I think they have a good enough team to at least get to the title game, but I don't see that being UConn if UConn ends up being the matchup.
I have UConn and Purdue right now in that championship, so I do think that Purdue definitely can make it.
Yeah.
I will default to you when it comes to college basketball in terms of your knowledge for that more than I would know with college basketball. Yeah. But I do. That's one thing I've heard a lot is UConn just looks like the most complete team.
Yeah.
I think one other thing too before we end this is I am really curious to see if they change the way that the March Madness tournament is, because I feel like that's been a topic of conversation the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Do they have more of a style of apparently there's supposed to be a play-in that they're supposed to have for college basketball next season. Like 8 teams are going to randomly select, and then the winner gets like, I don't know how much money, but it's like a good chunk of money. Yeah. So I'm curious to see now with the NIL deals and everything else, like how do you continue to make a product that people are going to watch? Because obviously for all of us, we love it because it's like, oh, we get to fill out a bracket with our friends and family, and it becomes a whole thing for us. Yep. But for like the athletes, right? How do we continue to make this something that they want to do? Because I feel like after a certain point, when you have so many schools that are stacking players, how do you continue to make the product work? So I guess that's a good question to you. Do you think that they will change the way that the tournament works right now? Do they expand it? Do they change the format of it? What do you think?
I don't know if the format will change, but they could potentially put more teams in, just because a lot of these teams this year that won their conference tournaments, the only way they were be able to get into the tournament is to win the conference championship, because they weren't really good teams and they just got hot, and a lot of teams actually got snubbed this year because teams that weren't good this year somehow made a run in their conference tournament, won a conference tournament, ended up getting in. So some of these automatic bids got pushed to the side because you have to put in the conference champions. So left off a lot of spots, and that's why Seton Hall, in my opinion, was the team that got absolutely robbed the most. They were a 20-plus win team. They were a good seed in the conference tournament, and a good conference with Marco. Look at 3 of those teams are in that conference are still in the Sweet 16. There are only 3 teams that made it too: Crane, Marquette, and they beat UConn. UConn's only lost 3 games this year, and Seton Hall beat them. They beat them by double digits too, I believe. They killed them on their home floor. So they would have been in if like a UAB didn't win their conference and stuff like that. So I could see them expanding it, but I don't think the format will change, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I don't think they'll ever change the one and done rule. Yeah. Like, I don't see that because that's just how it's always been. Yeah. And it's more exciting.
Yeah, I was saying more of like how the games are laid out, spread out.
Yeah.
So like the Wednesday, Thursday, then the Wednesday would play Friday, then the following would play Saturday, then the 64-32, then they get this little break going into the Sweet 16, Elite 8 and stuff. I don't think that kind of format's not going to change. Well, they might expand teams, but I think
like the way that they've been doing it, I think it works. Yeah. I get it. I'm just I guess the reason why I was asking that too is just kind of like more because these conversations have happened. Obviously, we've seen that the college football playoff is going to expand to 16 teams. So I'm just curious to see what that does for at least college basketball, because again, I think that people want more. Adding more means more money. So if they have more teams, that means more games, more sponsorships, more ads, more revenue. Yeah, everybody's happy, right? So then there's damn near no way you'll ever get a perfect bracket, because if you can't guess 64 teams right, I don't know how you're gonna guess 96 right or something. But
all right, going back back to the NBA. Last question for you.
All right.
If you had to pick right now, what's the NBA Finals matchup going to be right now?
If I had to bet today.
Right now, yeah.
All right, on March 26, 2024 at 9 o'clock p.m., I am going to go with the Denver Nuggets versus the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm only saying this because I just don't know why, but it just feels to me that Boston is going to somehow F this up. So, I'm taking a big swing right there with Milwaukee, but I don't know. I don't know what it is right now. That 30-point lead yesterday blown to the Hawks doesn't sit
Their
right.
Their style of play is very. It is a problem.
Yeah,
it's been a problem with them. I would have. It's kind of hard going against Denver right now. The way that the way that they've been playing now. As of right now, they do have the one spot, and if the road has to go through Denver again, I feel very confident that they get out of the West.
Yeah. I mean, it's only one or two teams in the East.
I know. I would probably still go Boston. I think they're just talented enough to get to the finals.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have Denver as my champion. I would have the Nuggets repeating again.
Yeah, no, I would definitely have Denver. I think either way I look at it, either East team, they make it.
Yeah.
Denver is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that Denver, as long as they stay healthy, they're not going to lose.
Yeah, I can't wait when the playoff bracket comes out and we fill out our own brackets. And we're good. We should do like a lot of people are doing these college basketball stuff.
Yeah.
We should start a playoff league where everybody does their own brackets. And
I'm done.
Yeah,
Let's do it. We'll have it out there on Twitter for you guys to fill out. Definitely submit yours to us so we can all kind of compare and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe we have like a little bit of like a prize for whoever like gets like it right. Obviously, like I feel like a lot of us are gonna probably put Denver, Boston, or Denver, Milwaukee. Maybe somebody's gonna put a different team. I mean we never know. But I think right now, man, I just feel like the NBA right now is in that predictability again, where it's like you just kind of know which teams are going to be there in June. We just have to see it first.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for the Western playoffs. I'm not excited for the East, man. I'm sorry. Before we go, man, I'm sorry, bro. We are so cooked in the Eastern playoffs.
We was talking about too, like the last few years. Oh, the East has been getting better. East been getting better. But I feel like we're going back to those.
We got two teams.
Long time ago, when the West was so much better than the East, I feel like we're back into that again.
We are, dude.
Even though last year you could have said, "Oh, I'm not gonna lie, East looks better than the West."
Yeah.
Now it's not even close. It's not even close right now.
No, because you literally have like the Boston is going to beat either the Bulls, the Hawks, or whoever loses in that Philly Miami playing game.
Yeah.
And then unless Miami, I mean maybe we don't know.
Can you imagine that first round match? It's Miami taking out Boston the first round.
I mean that's gonna be.
Oh my lord!
We haven't seen an 8 seed knock out a 1 seed since Memphis did it in 2012.
Yeah.
With against San Antonio, so or 2011 I think.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean that is going to be something to look at.
I can't wait. Yeah.
I am very excited to see. How the play-in turns out, I think, just for the West, sometimes the East, who cares, man? So just get it over with. All right, we don't care. But no, I'm excited for the playoffs. I think it'll be good. I do think that Knicks will be an interesting team. I think as long as they can be healthy.
They can be healthy. Yeah.
I think they're healthy. I do like the team. I don't think they make the conference finals. I do think they could make the second round again like they did last year. I think they're still missing a piece.
Yep, I agree.
But, guys, we appreciate you listening again to the podcast. We're sorry that we have been MIA. Unfortunately, a lot of things have been happening in the past month. So, we just want to say we appreciate each person that listens, that shares the podcast, and that continues to give us support. Without you guys, we wouldn't really be able to do this. So, I just want to say, Nick, appreciate you, man. I'm really hyped for tomorrow's game that we get to go see in person.
I'm hyped, Should be a good game.
Should be.
Yeah. You can see your boy?
Yeah, I can see my boy Halliburton. Siakam, obviously now on the Pacers. Maybe the Bulls do solid, and I mean, it is what it is. If we lose, we lose.
Yeah,
so
I just feel like those Bulls Pacers games. I feel like in the last few years, I feel like every game has gone in a wire.
That's what I'm hoping for, man.
Yeah.
I've been to every game has been close I've gone to this year.
Yeah.
Two OT games where they've won. So I'm hoping we get to that third one.
You were both at one of them.
Yes, sir. That Houston game,
Yep.
which was actually a really good game.
Yep.
So guys, subscribe to the podcast if you have not. Follow us on X and TikTok. And for myself and for Nick, this has been All Ball No Foul. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of your night and enjoy the rest of March Madness. And we'll see you guys next week.